interact with you people briefly this afternoon to make my views known, primarily concerning the President's nomination of Professor Amupitan as INEC National Chairman. As you are aware, the name was deliberated upon at the Council of State meeting a few days ago, whereupon the President sent or forwarded it to the Senate as required. And yesterday, it was read on the floor and referred. I'm a member of the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters, and we expect that sooner than later justice will be done to that referral, either at the committee or at the committee of the whole. But I felt, after interacting with some of you, that I needed to say one or two things, because a number of you gentlemen of the press came and wanted to know my views about the President's nomination of Professor Amupitan in view of some of the issues that have been thrown up. And let me say this. Being in opposition does not mean that we disagree and condemn and fight every matter or issue emanating from the government in power. Where they are wrong, so I've strongly felt they were wrong. I've spoken about it. Some of them here in this hall, on several occasions. But in this occasion, I told a few of you, the journalists who spoke with me, that I will be voting to support the nomination. I'll be voting to support the nomination of Professor Amupitan as chairman of INEC. I've made inquiries, I've spoken to senior lawyers across the country, and what has occurred to me is that there's some kind of confusion between his name, Amupitan, Professor Amupitan, a professor of law at the University of Jos, and another professor, Professor Osipitan also, who is of the University of Lagos or Lagos State University or things like that. And after speaking with a number of people, there's no compelling evidence showing that he was indeed part of the legal team of the president as speculated. Now, apart from that, for professionals, I think we need to be careful when discussing their involvement. Because as a lawyer myself, senior lawyer, several years standing, we know, and you all know, that legal practitioners act for all persons and all parties that engage them. In one matter, they will act for you and your party. And even in the same day, in another case, they will be acting for another party and another person, maybe your opponent. So, in my view, we must make a distinction between professional engagement, professional involvement, when we are talking of professionals, and lawyers in particular, and partisan involvement, partisanship. You recall that in the 9th Senate, I was one of those who, as a member of the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters, also chaired by then distinguished Senator Kabiru Gaya, took a very firm position in the petitions relating to Loretta Onoshe, where we established firmly that those who will be nominated, who are nominated or appointed by the president to be in INEC, must not be card-carrying members, must not have a history of partisan membership. That was established. And the Senate in plenary adopted our position, spearheaded by some of us. We didn't just do that because of our party. We did it for the country's democracy. We did it to deepen and cure the integrity and trust deficit that has plagued the Electoral Commission. And the president at the time honored the resolution of the Senate. But in this case, I will not be in a position to agree on that if what is speculated is involvement as a legal practitioner. And in any case, from what has been shown, that he was not even a member, that there's some confusion between the names, which are similar. I don't know if they mean the same thing in Yoruba. Professor Amupitan and Professor Osipitan or Shipitan. And furthermore, while I have no personal interaction, I've not had a personal interaction, I find it promising that for the first time, a senior advocate of Nigeria has been nominated and put forward for this very sensitive national assignment. He's a professor of law and a senior advocate. And that means he's not only an erudite scholar, it also speaks to integrity as a senior advocate of Nigeria. And as you all know, there have been several professors who have had to pilot the affairs of INEC, including the outgoing one, immediate outgoing one, Professor Yakubu Mahmood, a very brilliant professor of political science, I must say. And there have been several professors, but none of them have been a professor of law and a senior advocate of Nigeria. I find that exciting. I know that there's a lot of cloud of deficit in terms of trust, not only in the institution of INEC, but a lot of distrust in the country politically. And we're entitled to ask questions, to raise issues, and to find answers. That is legitimate. But I find it exciting. I think it's an opportunity to have a person of this standing now in charge of INEC, and it gives the institution to renew itself. It gives all of us Nigerians an opportunity to demand for the right things to be done. And we believe that a professor of law and a senior advocate who is conscious of his standing as a scholar and his standing amongst his peers as an inner member of the bar, I believe that he will have something to work for. And is the kind of person that, God willing, with everyone's support and encouragement, should be able to introduce the changes, reforms in the electoral system we are pushing, and even reforms in INEC itself. Is the kind of person that I believe should be able to understand the need to do things differently. That when elections are conducted, it's not enough for figures to be cooked up and declared and people told to go to court. I believe that a professor of laws and a senior advocate of Nigeria will understand that apart from the judgment of men and the judgments that will come from courts over his actions, there is also the judgment of God and of posterity. I believe he's the kind of person that should understand that onerous responsibility. And unless there are compelling facts to the contrary, beyond what we know now, I told few of you who spoke with me that I will be casting my vote. I will be supporting the nomination. And as a member of the Electoral Committee and also a member of the Senate, I will work with colleagues to ensure that the electoral reforms we are championing see the light of day, and that Professor Amupitan, when confirmed, Amupitan, good, thanks for the correction. I can see why that correction is, confusion is coming. That we will all work to ensure that he does what is right. And we expect him, as a professor of law and a senior advocate of Nigeria, the first senior advocate to be so nominated, to understand his place in history, the history of laws, the history of lawyers, the history of INEC itself, and write his name in gold. But just as I was moving down here, there are also developments in my state. And I will issue a full statement on that in due course. But let me tell you that I am where I have been.